Hello, friends. Welcome to today's meditation and reflection. The Solemn Path. There is a preciousness to your life journey. And I think while there are so many ways that we can discover this preciousness, one way is to allow the preciousness of another's life awaken us to our own preciousness. And that's a big reason of why I wanted to focus these last days on the life of Jesus. It is generally accepted that this person lived around the time that is recorded, and that there are many writings that are collections of his sayings and his words. There's a lot of obscurity there too. But nonetheless, he is among a group of individuals that has borne impact and continues to bear impact in our humanity, even if that impact is a for and against. Something about this person having lived and whatever they stood for or whatever they were like or whatever happened to them has had a lasting impression in the collective consciousness. And of course, the second reason I'm choosing Jesus, because I could choose anybody, and I've quoted so many different mystics. I could choose the Buddha, I could choose Lao Tzu, Confucius, Kabir, Rabia, Mirabai, Teresa of Avila. There's so many that I could choose. But the second reason I'm choosing Jesus is because this time of year leading up to Easter, there's a heightened focus upon the life and death of Jesus because of how dramatic it was. And so it's another opportunity for us to drop into the preciousness of our lives. When you reflect with this reflection, if you're open to it, I'd love for you to, in some ways, put yourself in Jesus's shoes and wonder, what would that have felt like? And in other ways, let it touch within you the parts of your life where there's similarity. Now remember, just as I quoted Joe Dispenza in a recent reflection, I do believe with him that we are called no longer to die for the truth, which it seems this person of Jesus ended up needing to do, but that we are called to live for the truth, and the era has changed. And while there is still a certain death that does happen, it's not healed out of the human consciousness yet. Nonetheless, we are pioneering solid ways of living for truth. So it is largely held that this human being died very young. Popularly, it's thought that his ministry of healing and teaching was only 3 years long, and that he died and was crucified when he was 33. That's popularly held, and I'm not going to get into the historical critical analysis of that. But what we can take to be pretty verifiable is that he was very young, and that he wasn't in ministry very long before it led to his crucifixion. Imagine what it would be like as a human being to step into the fullness of your gifts, to give your 100% yes, to have people experience healing left and right, and to also be aware that that very goodness is causing a stir of suspicion, fear, anger, jealousy, and a whole host of other responses. And I would imagine Jesus was an incredibly sensitive human being, because you get in the stories that he looked right into people's hearts. He understood more deeply, which says he was by nature a pretty sensitive human being. You can imagine that he was present to all of this? What would that have been like? And in the ways that you're sensitive, put yourself in his shoes. What would that have been like? I mean, when I was reviewing the 4 Gospels, and what happens is the ministry starts, and right from the beginning, its eyebrows are beginning to raise. And then as the eyebrows are raising, then it begins to be called into question. So right from the beginning, this division around all this is taking place. And then as his ministry is going on, in numerous places in these Gospels, it's noted that he has to avoid being in public. That's pretty incredible. I mean, think about that. Put yourself in his shoes, that not long into a ministry, all of a sudden you're having to be covert. And you're also having to hold within your heart that you're doing all this good. And people who want to give 100% yes, even step back out of fear that they'll be kicked out of the synagogue. Now, we can look at that lightly today. We're so globalized and developed as a civilization, and say, oh, so what? You know, they can find another community, right? I mean, today, it's painful. I've been banned, so it's painful. But it doesn't mean that you're bereft of community altogether. Back then, it was massive. To be shunned by your community or kicked out, it affects you and your entire family. The impact is worthy of fear, because on a survival level, you might not make it. You might have to go without food or lodging. So being feared to be kicked out of the synagogue was a very legitimate survival fear. And Jesus would have borne that in his own heart as well. Let that penetrate a little bit. I mean, how does that make you feel when you really reflect upon it as this human being stepping forward, not naive? He's clearly savvy, but not untouchable. His heart deeply, deeply, deeply feels. And how can you relate to that in your own life? What ways is there resonance in your own life? How can you hold your own life as precious? Acknowledge the dignity that's yours. Dignity in traveling this path. And step again and again into your truth. To not displace your self-esteem through approval, through people-pleasing. I mean, we throw that word around very readily. Oh, I'm just a people pleaser. Almost as though we get brownie points for recognizing it. But all of those mechanisms keep us away from ourselves. Those choices are inauthentic within us. And we have an example of an individual here in Jesus that was authentic, that spared nothing, that had come into such a place of freedom, was authentic. I don't know, I just feel very moved by even reflecting on that, because with the preciousness of his life, there's such a richness for us to open to the preciousness of our life. To not allow our egos, not people, not events, not structures, but to not allow that limited part of ourselves keep us away from ourselves any freaking longer. Now, Jesus seems to show up in his ministry in 4 distinct ways. He shows up healing people, mainly physically, but also emotionally and spiritually as well. he shows up in sharing parables. If you look at the Gospels leading up to the last bit of his life, it's still replete with parables. And parables are stories that have a deeper insight they're looking to help you understand. So they make up a story as a way of shining a light on a deeper lesson that moves away from your limited way of thinking. A third way he shows up is with moral ethical teaching, right? Calling out hypocrisy, calling out doubt and discouragement, celebrating true, authentic faith that's not reliant on approval. So he stands in his words and his actions clear as day with moral, ethical teaching. And the fourth is that he speaks about his death. He speaks about his death. I only pulled up one example in Matthew chapter 26, right when the plots are going on, and it's shortly before they record the last events of Jesus's life. He has his disciples. He says to them, "As you know, the Passover is 2 days away, and the Son of Man will be handed over to be crucified." So over and again, we get in this record keeping that he refers to his death. Why? Why does he refer to his death? One reason could be that referring to his death gives anchor and weight to all his teachings. It shows that he has a certain level of insight and knowledge that are an inner credibility. Another way we could look at that is that he is reinforcing that the real resurrection in our lives is dying to all our limited ideas of ourselves. Not hating the world, not hating our lives, but loving our lives so much that we learn what our life is about. Why do you think he might refer to his death? And he does so in numerous places, in numerous ways, motivated for different reasons. Sometimes he's asked about it. Sometimes he's saying it in conjunction with something. But that's part of what is important as part of his ministry. And what would that have been like? Put yourself in his shoes as somebody who's so filled with divine love and knows that they're going to actually die for that love. What would that feel like to you? If it were you, what would it feel like? What would it taste like? What would be your thoughts around it? How can you get real around it? Your life is so precious that you're meant to live and die for this love. You're meant to be so authentic that there is nothing else. And when we get examples of lives like this, they call us to task. Is there any way we're sitting back on our laurels? Is there any way we're still battling with the world around one thing or another and not really making it internal as it's meant to be? Where are we still asleep? And look at that. To be asleep hides us from the pain of knowing we need to die to our limited sense of self. Yet to be asleep causes more pain. How can you open in a new way to this knowledge, this insight? So our practice today to open up to this within ourselves is going to be Ujjayi breath, which is victory breath in pranayama. But before we get there, I want to read a sutra for you that I believe is an invitation that Jesus was giving when he was alive, and also one that is reverberating even now for you and me. From him, if it makes sense for you, but it could just be from the divine in general if feeling that it's from him as well doesn't resonate with you. Shining one, that's you, whose body flows with power. When you are astonished, startled, or afraid, and gasp a shocked inhalation, right there, right there. Sense the vibration of that gasp on your palate. Do it with me. The shimmer of that sound in the mouth evokes a flood of knowing, a gush of the divine. This is the invitation to you and I. And in this larger book of the Radiant Sutras, if you don't have it, in the end, Lauren Roche takes one word from each sutra and goes a little deeper. And in this one, in that sutra, which is Sutra 67, he takes the word jnana, which means knowing, becoming acquainted with, higher knowledge, derived from the one universal spirit. This is the Aha Sutra, a sudden glimpse beyond the ordinary. We are astonished, and in moments of discovery, insight, and revelation, the whole body comes alive. The eyebrows rise, the mouth opens, and we may gasp, ah! It is the sudden sensation of being flooded with knowledge, jnana. Aha, the natural mantra. So one mantra that goes with that is jnana aga. When we do Ujjayi breath, which I'm going to teach you in a moment, if you wish, you may silently evoke and draw upon that mantra, because Jesus, in living the preciousness of his life, invites you to remember that you are this shining one, and to allow the aha to move you beyond the ordinary. All right, so Ujjayi breath. So the word means ocean breath or victorious breath. And it can be traced back to Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, which scholars, many believe it was written in the 2nd century CE. So in the 200s, though it could have existed for a long time before that. But that's where you trace pranayama as one of the important parts of yoga and a powerful way to come to samadhi, so a powerful way to come to inner unity. And in the pranayama school, there are many forms of breath that are seen as important gateways to the self. So Ujjayi, which I tend to say, or Ujjayi breath, is one of them, victorious breath. And the reason it's called ocean breath is because of the sound you want to be making. So I'm not going to do a lot of guidance on this, but you want to focus on breathing from your diaphragm. You can go ahead and start doing that while I explain. And you're going to, if your nose isn't stuffed up, breathe entirely through your nose. And you can do that just so quietly, right? What you want to add to it is a contraction in the back of your throat that makes a sound that sounds like a wave. See if you can do that and pay attention that you're that sound of the wave. If your nose is stuffed up, you can do it through your mouth. when I do it through my mouth, I push my tongue back a little bit. All right. So we're going to be doing that breath. And as we do that breath, you're invited to silently, if you wish, notice yourself as ocean breath, or silently allow the phrase shining one to arise within you. Shining one. You could even allow it to be the Christ consciousness within you saying it. Shining one. If you like the Sanskrit words, it could be Jnana Auga, which is divine stream flowing through me. So you can choose any of those. And what I'm going to invite in is the presence of Jesus. Knowing that this Jesus is all love and all friendship. All right, so I invite you to close your eyes. Now, if you haven't already done so, begin the Ujjayi breath, which means you're breathing just from your diaphragm, and you're making that small contraction. It should sound like a wave. You can even imagine waves. All right, keep continuing, and if you're open to it, I want to invite in and recognize the presence of Jesus. Keep your focus on the Ujjayi breath, and if you're comfortable, notice that Jesus is doing the breath with you and with me. Across all time and space, a precious one that wants you to know you are precious is doing this breath with you and with me. Keep resting into the Ujjayi breath. You can rest into the sound, into the word shining one, into the mantra Jnana Auga, or anything you're inspired with. And now we'll go into an extended period of this Ujjayi breath, remembering that we are together. We are together, all together in one place. And we begin. Go at your pace. Try to keep the inhale and the exhale relatively close in the amount of time you give for each, but fully let the breath inhale and exhale. Don't try to speed up or go fast. Rest into the rhythm. You are the victorious breath. You are the shining one. You are the precious one. You are the stream of divine flow. Stay close to the breath or the mantra. Stay with it, move at your pace, renewing your focus, renewing your presence. Let the breath undo you, O shining one. And 3 more Ujjayi breaths. And once you've completed the last exhale, return to non-Ujjayi breath, keeping the eyes closed, resting in the sensations of the body. And hear these words that the Christ speaks within you and to you. Shining one, whose body flows with power. When you are astonished, startled, or afraid, and gasp, a shock inhalation, right there, right there. Sense the vibration of that gasp on your palate. The shimmer of that sound in the mouth evokes a flood of knowing, a gush of the divine. And when you're ready, bring your palms together in front of your heart and open your eyes with namaste. Namaste. Janana.